Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm very tired. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We're powering through. I'm David Steele. Yes, we're recording this on the 31st of July, 2024, just a few days after the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, which we both enjoyed immensely, didn't we?
Certainly did, yes.
We didn't go and see it together, you understand. Logan and I, and of course Cammy, went to see it on Friday night. Logan, who's played Speedy for us many times and other characters. And quite frankly, listeners, if Peter will let me say this, we lost our So there you go. What did you think of it, Peter? What was it you said when you messaged me?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was everything you'd want from that kind of movie. It was fantastic.
And we're also a couple of days out of the announcement that DC are going back to using the traditional DC Comics bullet logo, which was revealed at San Diego Comic Con. So we're both very pleased about that. So if you want a bit of a timestamp as to what our thought processes are at the moment, listeners, that's where we are. So this is all a bit timey-wimey because we've recorded this before some other episodes that will have been released by now, I expect. But I'm very tired. We didn't record anything last week, but Steve and I did, and Pete and I try and record something at least every week where possible. So we're doing a story this week because it's 11 pages long, and it's because it's from issue 233 of The Flash, published on the 25th of February 1975, just a few days before my second birthday, and exactly right between episodes 1 and 2 of the Doctor Who story, The Sontaran Experiment.
Gasp.
Yeah. Now, my copy of Flash issue 203 is beautiful. There's a Thorpe & Porter price stamp on one character's left thigh, but aside from that, it's gorgeous, and I can't wait to take a photograph of it to post on the Instagram. Peter, would you like to tell everyone about this beautiful cover?
I most certainly would. It's got the line of DC Superstars logo at the top. Solo starring in this issue, Green Lantern, because obviously he is the backup.
Mm-hmm.
It's 25 cents, number 233, cover dated May, approved by the Comics Code Authority.
Phew.
We have the Flash logo at the top, and I love that logo. It's just so iconic and just retro and brilliant. It's superb.
I think you should get it as a full back tattoo.
I possibly will.
Hooray!
Although people might get the wrong idea. Yes, and the main image on the cover, we have Iris walking into the Allen household, and she's saying,
"Hi honey, I'm home."
But what she doesn't see is the body of the Flash. Lying, is he dead? Is he comatose? We don't know. But standing over the body of the Flash is Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. Gasp.
Uh-oh.
And he's ejecting a Flash costume from his ring. And he's thinking,
"Now that I've taken the Flash's life, I'll take his wife."
And there's a caption at the bottom saying, "Deadly Secret of the Flash."
Yes, the Reverse Flash, who to my mind is still visually the greatest comic book villain ever designed. He's a poet and he didn't know it.
Yes, he is. How exciting. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was... Peter's almost as excited as I am with that, listeners. Can you tell?
I'm beside myself with glee.
I love this cover because the contrast between Zoom's uniform and the Flash's uniform and the duplicate of the regular Flash's uniform that Zoom is firing out of his ring, if you pardon the expression, contrasts so well with the very dark, moody, shadowy background. It pops, to coin a phrase. I love this cover. It's amazing.
Indeed.
It's a favourite of mine. It really absolutely is. And without any further ado, we shall jump straight into the story. Listeners, if you'd like to read along and you don't own a copy of Flash issue 233, it's reprinted in the Flash, A Celebration of 75 Years hardcover, if you have one of those. So, the opening splash panel begins with one of those captions with a little finger coming off and pointing that Peter likes so much, and the caption reads,
"The marriage of Iris and Barry Allen has been a solid and happy one, even though the husband leads a secret life as the Flash, fastest man alive. At least, it was a happy match, until the day Iris realized being a superhero's wife could be a living nightmare, when she discovered the deadly secret of the Flash."
And there's a nice little headshot of Barry Allen, the Flash, next to the word Flash in that title there. He looks a little demonic and scary, it must be said. Now, the main image, this opening splash panel, is Iris cowering in fear against the wall of the Allen household. And in front of her, we see the Flash, and his right arm is rotating at speed. He has something in it, which looks like some kind of club or weapon. Iris is saying, "Flash, why are you twirling that yardstick like a propeller?" To which the Flash says,
"It's my super speed murder weapon, Iris. Now that you know my secret, I've got to kill you."
Oh my goodness, and we get another caption box that reads...
A DC Quality Magazine.
Edited by Julius Schwartz, written by Carrie Bates, art by Irv Novick and Tex Blaisdell.
Listeners, this one, it has to be said, we're doing this one because it fits the ongoing narrative. Really, that's why we're doing this one. It doesn't really tie into our normal sort of criteria for doing a story, but it fits the overall narrative that we're following, because ultimately, our endpoint for this podcast is Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we all know what happens to the Flash in Crisis on Infinite Earths, even though we're not going to spell it out for you right now. So bear with us, indulge us if you like this week. The first story panel properly, at the top of page 2, we see a hand and another hand. And the first hand is presenting a watch to another hand. The voice of the person receiving the watch says,
Ah, you found it, honey. I've been looking for this ever since I got up.
Honestly, Barry, how you ever survived as a bachelor, I'll never know. And we're with, of course, the Allens. We're with Iris and Barry. And Iris says, Saturday is the one day you can't afford to lose track of time. Not with all the errands I've lined up for you. Please, look at your watch now and then, and hopefully you'll be on time for a welcome change. We see Barry putting his watch on. Barry looked great in a brilliant blue pullover.
Mm-hmm.
He looks a bit like Robert Redford in this story, actually, to my eyes.
Does,
anyway,
yes.
There's another little one of those pointing captions, and it's saying,
No regular reader of The Flash will be surprised by this typical scene. Iris Allen reprimanding her flashy husband for typically being late. But unless you were here last issue, you should be surprised by this untypical scene.
Yes, we see the Allens get into their green saloon car, and there's a young teenage girl in their company. She was introduced, presumably, in the story in issue 232, which neither of us has bothered to check. Isn't that right, Peter?
I have checked.
Oh, he has! There you
Yes.
go. Well, fill us in then, Peter, on who this character is.
This is Stacey Conwell. She was the daughter of Charlie Conwell, who was a friend of Barry's. He was a police detective who ran for DA and was killed.
Oh, no.
Yes. But basically, it was a promise between Barry and Charlie that if anything had happened to Charlie, then Barry would look after Stacey.
I see. Well, there you go, listeners.
There we are.
I would have checked if I hadn't been working at the Troon Golf Open for the last week, which is a further timestamp. So check out my Instagram, _David, if you want to see 8 days worth of selfies. Right. So they're all getting into the car, and Barry is saying,
Hop in, Stacey. We'll drop you off your dental appointment. It's on our way.
and Stacey says, It's not really, Mr. Allen, but thanks for being so sweet about it. They're all in the car in the next panel, driving along, and Stacey's saying, Dad used to tell me the Allens were the best people in the world, and I found out for myself when I started living with you. And we get another pointy little caption, which recaps what Peter told us a moment ago.
For those of you who haven't met this young lady, she's Stacey Conwell. Before her father, Detective Charles Conwell, died, he arranged for his good friend Barry Allen to take care of his daughter, while she attends classes at Central State College.
Fantastic. There we go. Now we're fully up to date on Stacey. Peter and I's Stacey Cornwell podcast will follow the completion of the Earth 2 podcast project and the completion of our Dial H for Hero podcast and the completion of our Challengers of the Unknown podcast and all those other podcasts that we said we would do. So watch out for that in the next 30 years. Cars speeding along the highway. It looks weird because to my eyes they're on the wrong side of the road. And the radio is playing and we can hear a song sort of saying,
And bam, 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 when I love baby.
Baby. And Iris is saying, That's a song? To which Stacey says, The kind that gets to #1 in the charts in no time, Mrs. Allen. To which Barry says,
Yeah, and winds up as a golden oldie a few weeks later.
Bim bam, continues the song. But then suddenly,
We interrupt for this urgent bulletin. Several freak tornadoes have suddenly appeared outside Central City, whirling directly toward town.
and then we get a caption for the next panel.
Watch closely, reader, and see what neither Iris nor Stacey nor any human eye could possibly observe. The fastest man alive bolting out of his driver's seat while the car is still in motion.
Yes, and we see that in panel 2 of page 3. We can see a high-speed Barry jumping out the window and zooming off as the car radio voice continues.
All persons in the vicinity are urged to find shelter at once.
And the caption for the next panel reads,
And within 1/100th of the time it takes to blink an eye, Barry is back behind the wheel with no one the wiser.
Yep, we see Barry zooming back to get into the car, and Iris is in the process of saying, Barry, are you just going to sit there and let those tornadoes wreck? And as she's saying this, Stacey says, Gosh, Mrs. Allen, what can he possibly do? The next panel, everything's back to normal in the car, they're driving along, and Iris suddenly sees something in front of them, and she says, Stop the car, Barry, there's a man lying on the road. To which Stacey, peering behind them, says, Looks like a hit-and-run victim. The next panel, Barry's got out of the car, and he's examining the man. We can see he seems to be wearing a brown jacket and his dark hair, kneeling down beside him. Barry says,
"This fellow needs medical attention. You better call a doctor, Iris. There's a phone booth just up the road."
"On my way, dear." Iris pulls off. Stacey, looking out the back window, says, "You know, it's weird. That man's body seemed to appear suddenly out of nowhere." And Iris is also looking slightly askance to her right, as if, she wants to peer back over her shoulder and see what's going on. And Iris thinks to herself, "Not so weird when I consider it. Methinks my flashy husband has pulled a super fast one on both of us." What could be going on? Well, a caption at the top of page 4 reads,
And indeed he has.
And there's quite a lot going on here. There's a sort of weird thought bubble thing floating above Barry's head. We can see in this thought bubble a sign above a shop reading Harrods Clothing. It's an image basically of the Flash speeding out of this clothing shop, and Barry is adjusting what we now see looks like a mannequin, and he's thinking to himself,
"That super speed side trip I made to a Central City clothing store to borrow this mannequin and plant it along the road was all for Stacey's benefit. And it worked. She's convinced I have a good reason to stay behind, and indeed I do. I've got to tackle those twisters as the Flash."
And with that, Barry activates his particular kind of jewellery, and his uniform sprouts out, growing to full size as it makes contact with the atmosphere. So yes, when we saw Barry speeding out of the car, the previous page, he was running off to grab this dummy and some clothes to put it on. So, very clever, isn't he? Anyway, the captioning continues.
Swiftly suiting up into the compressed scarlet costume that instantly expands upon contact with the air, the fastest man alive blurs westward.
Yes, we see Barry rushing. This is all very topical because the film Twisters is out in the cinema at the moment. And you should go and see it, listeners. It's very enjoyable. We see the Flash speeding through the rural Central City countryside. We can see what looks like a big farm building and some fencing and some hedgerows and stuff. And we see the 3 massive twisters ripping everything to bits as the Flash runs into view thinking,
"Cut up to these 3 tornadoes, with seconds to spare before they rip into town. The wind force of an average twister is well over 500 miles an hour, but that's just a stale breeze compared to the counterforce my super speed is whipping up. Which is why spinning in the opposite direction is breaking up this trio of twisters."
Yeah, and what we've seen over the bottom couple of panels of page 4 is the Flash running counter to the tornadoes and making them sort of separate and break up and dissolve, and that's very exciting. Barry's final thought on page 4 is,
"That brings 2 funnels down, and 1 to go."
And that's what he thinks in the first panel of page 5 as he accelerates towards the final twister.
But before the human tornado can begin his counter-spinning attack...
Yeah, we see the Flash starting to have a bit of trouble. It looks like he's been caught by the tornado. He says out loud,
"Hey, something screwy about this twister. I'm being drawn right into it."
And then we see the Flash being borne up into the heart of the storm, and there's very helpfully, he says to us,
Being bombarded by energy bursts, numbing me."
Yeah, there's pardon the repetition, but there's little flashes of golden energy striking the Flash and all around him within the body of the tornado. Very exciting. And then we see a human shape through the wall of the tornado as the Flash is looking down, and a voice from this shape says, "Right, Flash, it's merely camouflage to mask the ingenious death trap I've suckered you into." And the Flash, rubbing the back of his head, says,
That voice can only belong to Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash."
We see, looking as if it's been drawn by Don Heck in 1979, quite frankly, a shocking image of Zoom looking up at the tornado. And of course, once again, we'll reiterate that the Reverse Flash's costume is the reverse of our Flashes, where everything is red, it's yellow. He's a yellow body stocking with red accessories. Fantastic. I love this costume design.
Mm-hmm.
And we then get another big caption that reminds us who the Reverse Flash is.
The sinister Professor Zoom gained his super speed from his costume, a spare Flash uniform sent to Zoom's 25th century via time capsule. After amplifying its super speed wave patterns, still remaining from the time it was worn by the Scarlet Speedster, he altered this costume to suit his alter ego, the Reverse Flash.
Well done. Now, this is the point where we can stop and sort of say, Peter, don't you think the Reverse Flash is really, really cool?
Yes, he's also really, really sinister and awful, but amazing. He's the ultimate fanboy.
Yeah, no, he is. That's a great way of putting it.
He'd give Superboy Prime a run for his money.
Oh, they should team up. Jeff Lemire, if you're listening, and you've already run out of ideas. That was something else that was announced at the weekend, listeners. Jeff Lemire's doing a Justice Society book. They're starting a new volume of JSA as soon as Jeff Johns finally gets the final issue of his run out. Our Ross is cock-a-hoop, as we say over here. He's a big fan of Jeff Lemire. So anyway, to get back to the plot, the Flash is still inside the tornado. The little bursts of golden energy are still going off all around him, and we hear Professor Zoom's voice from outside. As you've noticed by now, the cosmos spurs exploding around you are sapping your stamina, so that even the slightest exertion of your super speed has become Impossible. Zoom gets a very deranged-looking close-up at the top of page 6 as he says, "Don't try to fight it, Flash. It will only speed up your death. Cosmospurs are the latest and deadliest form of energy discovered by 25th century science." We see the Flash's hand as if he's trying to vibrate his way out of the tornado in the next panel. Zoom, still monologuing away, says, "When I found out how terribly deadly they were, I made the 500-year time trip back to your era to give you the honour of being the first in time to suffer a horrible Cosmospur death." Zoom looks to his right, and we see 3 very stereotypical farm yokel types rushing towards him, one of them carrying a hoe, by which I mean the digging implement. The others, they're all in dungarees and big hats with big sideburns and all that sort of stuff. And when he spots them, Zoom says, "Ah, here come some convenient witnesses, fresh off the farm, to testify to your demise." Zoom rushes away in the next panel. We see the tornado breaking up, the 3 farmers running towards the area. The first one with the hoe says,
"He did it! Flash stopped the twisters!"
"He saved the city,"
"I gotta shake his hand,"
says the third. And then they all pull up fast, if you pardon the pun, in the next panel. And the first lad says, "Great Jehoshaphat!" The chap with the hoe and the hat says,
"What a price he paid to save us!"
and the other one says,
"Ain't nothing left them to bury."
and he points, and we see the Flash's empty uniform lying on the grass. Little clouds of dust or something lifting up from it. Gosh, has the Flash died a bit too early for Crisis on Infinite Earths? Spoilers. There's a caption at the top of page 7.
Not long afterward,
Iris has finally dropped Stacey off at her destination. We can see a little sign that says Dr. Paul, and Peter assures me the rest of it stands for dentist, so that's what she's off to. Listeners, brush your teeth. Stacey is saying, "Thanks for the lift, Miss Allen. See you later." She waves and Iris smiles, and then another radio voice interrupts proceedings, saying,
"Urgent bulletin! The Flash is dead! Repeat, the Flash is dead! It's been reported that the Scarlet Speedster died while stopping tornadoes threatening Central City."
And Iris looks wide-eyed. She says, "Oh no, my poor Barry."
"It's just fine."
And we see that Barry has just appeared beside the window of Iris's car. Fantastic. He continues,
"As the cliche goes, the report of Flash's death was greatly exaggerated."
And in this panel, Barry looks like Peter Noon, the lead singer of Herman's Hermits, which is really disturbing because he shouldn't really. Anyway, Iris is delighted. She says, "Oh, thank goodness." Barry starts to get into the car, saying,
"You're shaking so much. You'd better move over and let me drive."
"Okay, but what happened out there? Why did those farmers think that—"
"I died? I nearly did. Courtesy of my old nemesis, the Reverse Flash."
We should remember, listeners, of course, that the Reverse Flash tried to wreck Barry and Iris's wedding. Maybe we should have done that story, I don't know.
You can always do it as a flashback.
We could do. Let's always remember that there's some history there. The caption for the next panel then reads,
and as Iris hears the story,
Yep, the car is speeding along the highway and Iris is saying, "Cosmospurs? What?"
That's what Zoom called the lethal energy bursts. Luckily, I managed to vibrate out of my uniform and escape at super speed.
But shouldn't Flash make an appearance and clear up that erroneous news report?
No, darling. I want the world to think Flash dead for a while. It's part of my plan to smoke Professor Zoom out into the open. Meanwhile, Mrs. Allen, you and I have a busy day ahead of us.
The next panel see Barry's car pulled up at the side of a busy street. Iris standing on the pavement outside what looks like a large department store, and she's saying, "Now, remember, Barry, I'll be finished shopping in 2 hours. I know you'll be late as usual, but please make it in seconds instead of minutes." There is a slow dissolve.
2 hours, 26 minutes later.
With a screech, Barry pulls up in the car. We see Iris standing with a pile of packages on the pavement, tapping her foot impatiently as Barry says,
"Sorry, honey. Would you believe, heavy traffic?"
"I'd rather believe in miracles, which is what it'll be if ever you meet me on time." Iris is not happy.
And later that afternoon, 24 minutes after Iris has finished her beauty salon appointment.
And again we see Iris standing, arms folded and annoyed, as Barry pulls up in a hurry in the car, and Iris says, "Well, oh master of alibis."
I went to this diner for a cup of coffee, started reading Time magazine, and lost all track of, time.
Another slow dissolve.
And after an icy, silent ride home.
And we see Barry and Iris walking up to the house, each bearing a big bundle of boxes, as Barry says,
"I can't blame you for not speaking to me. You've every right to be ticked off after a day like today. By the way, Iris, I sure like your new hairdo."
But once inside the Allen home, the silence is finally broken.
Iris looks raging, listeners, as we say over here. She says, "New hairdo? That's beautiful. What's with you, Barry? Except for shampoo and setting, my hair is no different than it was this morning. You're sure acting strange." "Speaking of strange, Barry, let me see your watch." And with that, Iris grabs at Barry's wrist. Barry exclaims,
"Huh?"
And we're told that we're continuing the third page falling. Feverishly, we flip to the top of page 9. We get a close-up of Barry's wrist, and Iris is tapping at his watch and saying, "Just as I thought, it shows the correct time. Okay, when did you catch on to my trick and move the hands back?"
What are you talking about, Iris? I haven't touched my watch all day.
"Mr. Allen, ever since I've known you, you've been a Barry-cum lately. Why, I even went to the trouble of figuring out that on average, you're 25 minutes late. So this morning, I set your watch ahead 25 minutes before handing it to you." And again, we get a flashback to earlier in the story. We see the cuff of Barry's blue jumper and Iris handing Barry his watch as Barry is saying,
"Ah, you found it, honey. I've been looking for it ever since I got up."
we can see the time that looks actually like it's 11:15.
It does, yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And Iris's thought bubble confirms this when it says, "It's really 10:20, but Barry's watch reads 10:45. Hopefully, these extra 25 minutes will put him on schedule." We're back in the present, and angry Iris is saying, "But you were late all day anyway. Yet if you didn't touch the watch, how could it be showing the right time? Unless, and in close-up, with wide, scary eyes and dancing eyebrows, Barry says,
Go on, darling. Unless what?
"Unless you're not the same Barry Allen who was here this morning."
Blast! What a time for you to find me out, just when things were going so well. Looks like Barry Allen is about to become an instant widower.
Iris backs away, leaning against a piece of furniture in the house, and she's saying, You'd kill me in cold blood? Who are you anyway?" And we see Barry, his left hand extended, a sort of golden glow is suddenly emanating from it and projecting all over him as he says,
I'll let my matter distributor
answer that, my dear." And revealed, we see that it's not Barry at all, but Iris tells us it's Professor Zoom. "I should have known. You pulled a similar stunt when you tried to take Barry's place on our wedding day." And an asterisk tells us,
as recounted in the Flash 165, editor.
Yes, that's one I mentioned earlier. And in the first panel of page 10, with Professor Zoom revealed, and looking rather like he's been drawn badly by Don Heck, circa 1979, the Canary Cavorter says, "I thought probed Flash's mind to review his memories. Even made sure I'd be dressed exactly as he was today. My plan would have been foolproof if you hadn't tampered with his wristwatch this morning. That was the one detail I couldn't have foreseen." And we see at this point, Zoom is reaching forward to pick up what Peter assures me is a yardstick that just happens to be lying on the table beside him. And similarly to the splash panel, the very misleading splash panel, he starts to wave his right arm, circling as Iris says, "But why have you gone to all this trouble? And where is my Barry?" And with his arm spinning, Reverse Flash replies, "Ever since that day of our near marriage, I've known that you're the only girl for me. You see, it was love that made me do it." "You must be mad," replies Iris. "Made you do what?" Zoom, with his arm still spinning, says, "Why, murder the Flash, of course. So I could take his place as your husband. You see, my darling, I Cosmos burned him to death." Off camera, the next panel, Iris says, "No, I don't believe you. I won't believe you." There's a whoosh in the air as the yardstick starts to spin faster and faster. And Zoom is saying, "You'll find out different when the sharp vibrations from this yardstick slice you to death." And we see that Zoom has picked up a banana from the fruit bowl on the counter and is shoving it into the path of the whirling yardstick so that it starts slicing and dicing. And as banana chunks start flying everywhere, Zoom concludes saying, "Like so. Oh my gosh, he's going to kill her like a banana." Suddenly, though, in the next panel, Zoom recoils, exclaiming, "Ow!" throwing the yardstick away as he falls backwards, saying, "What hit me?" And we see Iris standing whirling, looking around as Zoom's body is lying on the carpet, and Iris says, "But Barry, was that you? Why did I get the feeling you're close by?"
Next moment, an erratic blur appears where there was only empty air before.
Yes, it's like a blue cloud is rushing around in front of Iris as she says, "Barry! Barry, you are alive!" And then the blue cloud forms properly into the familiar shape of our Barry Allen as he was dressed at the start of the story and as Zoom dressed to impersonate him. Iris exclaims, "I knew it! I knew it!" The embrace. Oh, it's wonderful. Keep love alive. Iris is crying tears of joy. She says, Barry, he was going to kill me.
I know, darling. I saw the whole thing, but I was helpless to do anything about it because of Zoom's diabolical death trap.
We get a little flashback in the next panel.
The only way to survive the Cosmospurs was by vibrating my molecules into non-solid invisibility.
Yes, we're back with the three farmers standing over the Flash's empty uniform with little bursts of cosmic gold dust floating above them, and the farmers stand there looking sad, and one of them says,
Ain't nothing left in 'em to bury.
and we see a sort of ill-formed, ill-rendered, sort of hollow version of Barry, sort of translucent, sort of floating beside his uniform and thinking.
They may think I'm dead, but I better super speed home to Iris and let her know I'm all right.
Barry narrates the next panel.
But my problems were just beginning, for the Cosmosphere radiation remained in my molecules, preventing me from materializing back to normal.
Oh gosh, yes, and we see Barry's point of view as he sees Zoom in his Barry disguise and Iris approaching the Allen household. And the half-materialised, translucent ghost version of Barry is thinking,
Good grief! Iris doesn't suspect her husband has been replaced by the Reverse Flash, and, as a phantom, I'm in no condition to stop him.
His narration continues.
From that moment on, I kept straining, taxing my willpower, trying desperately to muster the strength to throw an invisible vibratory knockout blow.
And thankfully, he manages it. Yes, we see the almost phantom form of Barry's fist striking Zoom as Barry thinks,
My fist finally got off enough vibrations to create a shockwave.
tremendous. The final panel of the whole story now. It's a short one, this. We see Barry and Iris looking as though they're about to kiss, and Iris says, Barry Allen, you talk too much. And we see at this point Stacey has just got back from the dentist appointment. She leans on a doorpost and thinks to herself, Oops, looks like I came home at the wrong time. And a small caption reads,
The end.
Next issue on sale during the last week in March.
Tremendos. We'll be doing a few more issues of The Flash very soon, listeners. Don't you worry. Don't you fret your pretty little heads. Okay, let's get out of the way. Covers a bit of a Defenders 39.
Yes, it doesn't quite happen that way, and it's a giveaway to the fact it's Reverse Flash in disguise, but hey, that's fine.
Yes. And it's interesting that the cover and the splash panel tie closely together very well because obviously Zoom impersonates Barry rather than impersonating the Flash.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Shakes fist, curse you God for making me this way. It's an interesting story. The sort of psychopathic aspect of Zoom's personality very much to the fore.
Yeah, without a doubt. And a continuation of his minor obsession with Iris.
Yes.
And his obvious constant obsession with Barry, so much so that he wants basically to be him now. It's better than I think his previous appearance in Flash. He had been watching old gangster movies and was talking in gangster lingo.
Yes, that's right.
Which was very annoying.
That was the one when Sargon the Sorcerer came back.
Yes, that's correct. We did cover that one, yeah.
Which I think is the only previous Reverse Flash story we've done. I think he does, of course, pop up a few times in Secret Society of Supervillains, so we'll see him shortly. Well, I'll say shortly, within the next year or so, we'll see him again at some point, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
I just love that costume.
Yep.
I remember seeing issue 281, I think, on the stands when I was a little boy and just being struck by it and just such an effective cover, the yellow and red against the purple. It's just like, it's such an obvious sort of costume design in a way, but it's just perfect. I love it.
As do I. And of course, it's the costume where he gets his powers from, because he experimented in Barry's costume and that's how he gets his powers. So it was, so that is a double whammy. It's one of these, if you could have any object or top 5 objects you would have from the DC universe, that would be one of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
Flash's costume. So you could have super speed, you could steal his super speed from it. What's the rest of your top 5 then?
Top 5. Okay. Metron's chair.
Right, okay. Save you a fortune in travel expenses,
You could travel anywhere in time and space in it, and it's got tons of other things. It also lets you see different realities and different timelines and
such like.
That's fantastic. So Reverse Flash's costume, Metron's chair. I used to have a big list of this, by the way.
I'm not surprised. Are you surprised, listeners? No.
I think Booster Gold's costume was another one.
Right.
I'd have to wear 2 costumes, though. That's the only thing.
You might get a bit sweaty.
Because Booster's obviously got the goggles, he's got the flight ring, he's got the force field belt. I could say Brainiac 5s and just take the ring and the belt, but then you don't have the super strength that's in his costume. Green Lantern ring and power battery was a bit, nah, it's not for me. Don't have enough willpower for that.
Yes, you do. Well, how else do you get through all this editing? How would you do that if you didn't have willpower? Listen, we'd better go on this because we're getting away from the point and we don't normally do such
Indeed.
things. What would I have? I'd quite like a Legion flight ring.
Mm-hmm.
I'd quite like a couple of the shirts that Jack Knight had at different points.
Oh, gosh.
I quite like Karate Kid's white sort of top that he wore for a long time, because I reckon I could pull that off.
Going down to Asda, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to think further. Lyle Norg's headband. I would have rocked that in my younger days when I still had hair.
You're quite low rent in your choices.
Well, no, no, I'm not a shy, cheeky so-and-so. I'm not being low rent. I'm not being greedy. I'm just being practical. Which ones would make most use in real life, etc. Listeners, go and start your own podcast about the different items of the DC universe and what you do with them, because Peter and I are far too busy. Back to the story. I'm getting a bit bored of this sort of like, here's what really happened, actually, device, which has been used in the last couple of Flash stories that we've done.
Yeah, well, I think this story is quite interesting because it's almost like a soft reset to the Flash, because obviously with Barry and Iris being together, there's no secret identity to hide.
Sure.
In the social dynamic. Introducing Stacey to the story is a case of Barry now has to do super speed tricks to protect his secret identity again.
Of course.
And there seems to be an awful lot of captioning here to overly explain what Barry's doing.
Yes.
Almost as if this is a jumping on point. More so than we've had recently.
That's a really good point, actually. That's fair. There's a lot of information for potential first-time readers. That's very true.
Yeah.
Within this story, we get two sort of like, oh, here's what actually happened whilst your attention was elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember that last Jay Garrick story we did in 229 had a fair bit of that.
Uh-huh.
I'm feeling that particular device is a little overused at the moment.
Yeah, well, Bob Haney uses it all the time as well. So, that's...
Yeah, but, everything you say there about this being a really good jump-on point issue is interesting.
Uh-huh.
It is interesting that we're going to be doing, within the next 12 issues or so of The Flash, we're going to be doing about at least 4 or 5. So we'll have to watch that and see if there's any kind of development through the ones that we sort of follow. Like, if it feels like this, if there's going to be a new approach to it, or a more linear or continuity-heavy sort of storytelling, it's very interesting. 3 very significant issues coming up, obviously, listeners, that you'll know about, being 235, 236 and 237. If you don't have copies of those, try and get hold of them soon, because we'll probably do all that in one episode. It'll probably be a combination of summarising and reading to get the gist, so we can get that whole story done. But I can't wait. Really looking forward to that as well.
And there's a significant guest star in that as well.
Yes, everyone's in those 3 issues. I mean, look at the cover of 235, and then look at the cover of 236 and whose names are up at the top, and then look at the cover of 237. We might have to ask a friend of ours to maybe contribute a couple of lines when we do 235.
Maybe.
I'll have to start working on that and plan out accordingly, and we can see if Gavin, if you're listening, if he's available. Anyway, back to issue 233. I hate to say it, great mate, I'm not really feeling it as far as Irv Novick.
Wow. We're going to have a major falling out over Flash artists here.
We are.
See the panel where the fake Barry first appears, when he pops his head in the car window?
Yes.
You can totally tell that's not Barry.
Yes.
He's got this zany, weird expression in his face that Barry's never, ever pulled.
Yes, and it kind of echoes the expression that Zoom has at the top of page 6.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's wonderful. That's great continuity in storytelling, yeah.
The storytelling is good, but the aesthetic of it is leaving me cold. It looks... Some of it, like the first panel of page 10 versus panel 3 of page 11, this looks like they could be drawn by different people. I've made references to Bad Don Heck. The final panel looks like it's like early 80s Carmine. It just seems like for me, it's a bit loose and a bit scratchy and maybe a little bit heightened. I don't know, but it's the storytelling is good. It's just the stylings don't really appeal to me, unfortunately.
I'm going to have to take you out and give you a spanking about your comments about Bad Don Heck. I love Don Heck's artwork. I'm a full Don Heck supporter.
That's nice, dear. That's good.
Indeed, the first Flash stories I read were Don Heck stories, and that's probably why I love them. Don Heck drew my favourite story of all time, which is The Origin of Wonder Man. My favourite single issue.
I'm well aware of that fact.
Dashing
Don Heck. Favourite single comic of all time. I'm well aware of that fact. Don Heck was very, very capable, but I feel that towards the end of his career, while his storytelling was good, his facial work, the character faces were just terrible.
I think it all depends who's inking Don Heck. If he gets a decent inker on him, then it's good.
Well, you would hope that he shouldn't have to leave it to the inker to sort of do all the good stuff. You'd hope there would be enough. Anyway, we're getting away from the point.
We'll talk about Don Heck when we get to Don Heck. There we are.
Yes, when we get to the JLA All-Star Squadron JSA crossover, we'll probably talk about them then. And you'll be surprised when I say how much I like how he draws Hawkman, but there you go. That's years away. That's years away. Back to this one. Zoom hasn't been around for a while, I don't think, at this point. He never. Am I right in thinking he never really mixes with the other Flash villains? He's never really a member of the Rogues Gallery, is he?
He's not. He has manipulated them from time to time. He's got another weird obsession about Al Desmond, who's Dr. Alchemy and Mr. Element.
That's right, yes.
that only really came up in one issue.
I've got that one. That was a cracker.
But again, it's another one of these weird John Broome character traits that he likes to put on people.
Yeah.
Which I always loved, which is fantastic. It just made them far more interesting.
I know the one you mean. That's the cover that homages Flash 123.
It certainly does, yes.
That's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Tune in the future, listeners, when Peter and I do our Mr. Alchemy stroke Mr. Element. Sorry, whatever he was called.
Dr.
Mr.
Alchemy.
Element, Dr. Alchemy. Yeah, when we do that podcast.
He didn't spend 6 years at Evil Medical College to be called Mr. Alchemy.
FS. Mr. Alchemy. That doesn't sound like a bad Stan Lee villain. I don't know what does. Anyway, listen, we're going very long on this, and I want this to be a short one because it's a short story and I'm very tired. You're right when you say that he comes across as super obsessive and super creepy. Like, the stuff he's saying to Iris is terrifying.
Yeah.
Despite his proclamations of love and wanting to be her husband and all that, he's about to slice her to death.
Yeah.
That's horrific.
I don't think she'd live long anyway if she hadn't realised that it was actually not Barry. Because I think he would have just grown bored with her very quickly.
I think you're right. He would have done something really sick and horrible. And of course, listen, the reason we've done this story is because it foreshadows something 40 issues or so in the future, which we'll get to eventually. And that's the real reason why we thought we'd do this one, because it means when we get to issue 270 odd, we'll be able to reference this one and sort of say, look, this has been brewing for a long time.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
2 more things, actually. I'm guessing the Allens must be doing some kind of home improvements. The fact they've got a yardstick in the house, they must be measuring things up, perhaps measuring for curtains or measuring tables.
Measuring for curtains, of course, supposedly the Montrose Avenue at the Liverpool Lomax in 1997.
And I liked it when Barry nipped into the clothes shop to steal some menswear.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
I see what you did there. That's a low.
The other thing I was going to mention is Stacey coming home. Is she not going to clock the fact that Reverse Flash is lying comatose on the floor in front of them?
Ooh, that's an excellent point.
Or would Barry say,
yeah.
Oh, it's another hit and run accident, Stacey. Go away and phone the police.
No, that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Would the Reverse Flash have been incarcerated? Would Barry have phoned the police? What would he have done?
Well, there was always the thing when Flash travelled in time, that he maintained an internal vibration to stay in the time zone that he was in. So maybe when he was knocked out, that vibration ceased and he went back to his own time.
Yes, your no prize is in the post.
Maybe. I'm just saying that we have no on-panel evidence.
No, that's great. That works very well for me. I'm into it. So, Barry and Iris and Professor Zoom. Interesting. We shall jump now to the contemporary correspondence. Peter's going to tell us what issue it's in, and I'm going to quickly try and grab it out of this pile in front of me.
It's from issue 236.
Wonderful.
The first letter says, Dear Editor, Carrie Bates amuses me. Deadly Secret of the Flash amused me. Flash 233 was an amusing issue. I will ignore the beautiful soap operatics for the nonce, as I'd first like to comment on the amusing sideline features Bates included. Gidget, Stacey Conwell, is a peachy keen character, and I hope she'll be bopping around the Allen household until she grows up, or until Gorilla City freezes over, whichever comes first. I also like the way Lucy, Iris, switched the time on Ricky's, Barry's, watch, so he wouldn't be late. Isn't she a clever one? And I liked her reaction to the news report that Flash was dead. Oh, my poor Barry. Maybe she thought she could drive really fast and beat Barry to the scene of his death. He's always late, you know. Iris' dramatic confrontation with Professor Zoom was the high point of As the World Turns, The Deadly Secret of the Flash. How unlike a love-scorned villain to enact revenge on his loved one, especially with murder. A novel idea, no? The ending, of course, was heartwarming. Stacey, she's such a little pixie, that one, accidentally intrudes on Barry and Iris as they kiss. Lucky for her, though, if she had walked into the room, she might have tripped over Professor Zoom's unconscious form and hurt herself. Strangely enough, she doesn't see it when she barges in. The high point of the Green Lantern tale, World That Bet on War, was the note that kicking on Q is a gesture similar to a handshake. Quite a nice idea.
Interesting.
I am so divided in my opinions of The Deadly Secret of the Flash. On the one hand, it's insipid. On the other, it's a nice piece of fun fluff. That the only way to convey my feelings to Carrie would be to shake hands with him, Q style. And that's from frequent letter writer Bob Rory from Oak Brook, Illinois.
Editorial response. Now that's the kind of letter we like to read. It's the kind of letter I don't like to read, for God's sake, on with it. One that is constructively critical and entertaining as well. To readers who wonder why Bob Rory's letters appear so often, we offer the above as a sample of his originality. Be equally clever in your own letters of comment, and you too can appear in Flashgrams, and that's from Bob Rozakis.
Yeah, references to I Love Lucy and other things that we don't get here.
Yes.
So, yes.
The next very short letter reads, Dear Editor, Carrie Bates has outdone himself this time. He has Stacey Cornwell walk right into the room. Professor Zoom is lying unconscious on the floor and she doesn't notice a thing. The girl must be half blind or completely oblivious to her surroundings, and that's from Bruce Parello, Urbana, Illinois. Lots of letters from Illinois this month.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Stacey forgot to go to the opticians after she went to the dentist. But editorial response to Bruce says,
To you, Bruce, and all the others who caught this seeming goof, we offer a simple explanation. Here we go. When Zoom was knocked unconscious, his internal vibrations ceased, and quick as a flash, he zipped himself into the future. Therefore, he wasn't lying on the floor for Stacey to see. So says Bob Rozakis. I hadn't read this.
There you go. Great minds think alike.
Fools seldom differ.
Peter channeling the answer man there. The final letter we're going to read from 236 goes like this.
Dear Editor, Deadly Secret of the Flash was an excellent yarn. You want to know why? The flashy gimmicks were played down. The villain wasn't out to rip off every bank in Central City, and, gasp, Iris was in real peril. Yes, you guys, Iris was in danger! Why do you think I've bought Flash all these years? You came close to doing a relevant story this time, and I'm glad. You ought to have a little more of it in Flash stories. The nostalgia trip is great, but perhaps you could give a little more insights into the characters like you did in page 10 with Prof. Zoom. After all, baddies are people too. So says Lynn Pope from San Jose, California.
Fantastic. Editorial response to that one reads, If you love stories in which Iris is in danger, you must be overwhelmed with our current Flash series, Lynn, and you won't dare miss its startling conclusion next issue. And of course, we will get to issues 235 to 237 of The Flash before you know it, listeners. So maybe that little bit of editorial response there has created some anticipation. Yes, there is a huge multi-Flash, multi-Earth epic coming. We're probably going to summarise stroke perform it as normal. It won't be a full multicast epic because I'm not going to let them. So yeah, but it's a belter. I would encourage you to try and get hold of those issues if you don't have them already. Very, very enjoyable. It's a very interesting period here as we move deeper into the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of very interesting stuff coming along. We're obviously going to be at the point where there's a number of ongoing series that are kind of relevant to our interests. So it's going to be very interesting seeing what's coming up. Isn't that right, Peter?
It most certainly is, David. Yes. Are you excited for what's coming up? Why don't you write in and tell us how excited you are? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we will be putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode.
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and at Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2. And it's the number 2 for all of our socials.
It certainly is. Listeners, if you're enjoying the show, please spread the word. Please retweet any of our posts on X or share some of our Instagram posts or share some of our Facebook posts and let your pals know what we're up to and how much you enjoy it. If you are enjoying it, you could leave us a review. I'm told such things are good for our optics and all that sort of stuff. As usual, we would encourage you to check out all the podcasts featuring our occasional guest co-hosts. We won't list them all now, but you know what they are. If you're feeling very generous, you go to our Linktree and find our coffee page and buy Peter the price of a beverage. You know, just you could if you felt like it. No pressure. No pressure. What's happening in the next episode? I can't remember because I'm very tired. So you'll just have to tune in next week and see what happens. Isn't that right, Peter?
Absolutely. On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
He has been Peter, and I've been David, and we'll see you soon on
the Earth2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Iris exclaims, I knew it! I knew it! Sorry, she coughs at the same time.
I will ignore the beautiful soap operatics for the nonce, as I'd like to... I was expecting that word there.
That's an odd turn of phrase, isn't it, listeners?